having right now in studio, and I'm joined by Emmanuel Atamba. This is the Youth Ambassador, Roots to Food Initiative. I'm also joined by Esther Bett, the Program Manager, Resource-Oriented Development Initiatives, RODI. Now, Esther has also worked with farmers since 1988 on sustainability, on sustainable food security. Also, she's a small-scale farmer in Uasin Gishu County, and she strongly advocates for consumption of organic foods. Now, Kenya banned GMO products in 2012, and now the conversation going around is, will that ban be lifted? And if that ban is lifted, what does it mean for health? So we have the pro-GMOs that are saying, you know, GMO is the way to go. Why? Because we are having a food insecurity, and we need food availability, we need sustainable food, we need accessible food. But the opponents of GMO are coming to say enough research hasn't been done. We don't have enough studies. We don't know how this kind of foods will be to human health. So basically the kind of conversation we want to have right now in studio is concerning these GMO products. Just which way to go as far as GMO is concerned. And like I said earlier, I'm joined by the amazing gentleman, and also the lady that this is the Emmanuel Atamba, the Youth Ambassador, as well as Esther Bett, the Program Manager, RODI. So thank you very much, gentlemen and lady, for joining us on the show this morning. And so, just before we actually begin talking about whether this ban should be lifted or not, first of all, when you talk about GMO, what do we mean? Because you get to understand that most Kenyans don't even know what actually GMO stands for, what kind of foods are manufactured this way. So maybe if I may start with you, Esther, when you talk about GMO, what does GMO stand for, and what kind of foods are this?
Okay, when you talk about GMOs, first I want to thank KBC for giving me this opportunity to share as a farmer and as an organic consumer advocate. First of all, when you talk about GMOs, you actually talk about genetically modified organisms. What are genetically modified organisms? These are organisms that are not produced in the natural type. Technology has been used to change their natural systems, and organisms have been introduced into those foods that were not originally created by God. They can be plants, they can be in the soil, or they can be animals that give us supply for food. So these are genetically modified organisms because they have a foreign substance within their system that is not naturally available.
Right. So basically these are just foreign substances that don't have that natural, you know, they don't even grow naturally, basically. All right.
They do grow naturally.
Okay.
But you have introduced something.
A foreign substance.
A foreign substance into that crop, because you cannot say, if you went to the farm right now and maize was growing, you will not know whether it is genetically modified maize or it is natural maize. So it is introduced into the system and cannot be seen by the naked eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Emmanuel, earlier on, before we actually came on air, we were having a discussion concerning GMO being a technology or science. So maybe just break it down for us. What exactly is this? Is this a science that needs to be tested for a while, or this is a technology that needs to be embraced?
Thank you for having me, and it's good to have this opportunity to share with Kenyans. The GM discussion has been taken a little too far, looking at the infrastructure, or in terms of regulations and even the capacity to regulate in Kenya. But basically, whether GM is a science or not, because the proponents of GM have been proposing GM as a science that is assured, as a science that has been tested and tried, and as a science that is stable. Which is something that I want to dispute as we begin. A science, from the Greek word scientia, is something that has been done over time. Science is something like, the rule of gravity. When you throw something up, it comes down. So science is something that has been done over time. It never changes. It's something that has been seen to be stable. It's a kind of pattern of behavior of activities, or a line of activity that is known to operate that way. So we cannot say GM is a science yet. The normal breeding is a science, where you cross one crop variety with another through natural breeding, and then you get a variety that has the desired traits. That is a science that has been done over time, and people know what to expect when you cross a certain maize variety and another maize variety, you would even know what to expect. But when you're talking about GMs, it's still not yet a science. It is still a technology, and it should be treated as a technology that is still under development, and anything can happen with a technology. That's just the same way you buy an iron box and then it burns your clothes, because anything can happen with a technology. So it's something that is not yet stable, and it should be treated as that. Yes.
And since you're just talking about the technology and the fact that it needs to be tested and all, and I'll be coming to you later for you to just tell us, you know, in terms of research, has enough research been done, or do we need to do more research and things like those things? But if I may come to you, Madam Beth, there's this issue of, yes, we need to embrace it. Why? Because, especially in Kenya, a lot of conversations going around that we have been having a lot of food insecurity. Just the other time, in the northern part of the country, places like Turkana and Baringo, people have been dying because of food. And if you may note, food security is one of the big four agenda that the government is trying to really fulfill. So they are trying to go with the line that, yes, we need to accept it. Why? Because we need to have enough food. So is this justifiable?
Well, the question I want to ask as a farmer and as a Kenyan, is the problem of food insecurity in Kenya caused because we are not planting GMOs? The Kenyan situation is not because we are not planting GMOs. It's not that we don't have enough technology. Enough research has been done by CARI. And the challenges in this country have shown that our soil fertility has gone down. Farmers do not have enough support to produce enough food. Farmers need to be supported to produce the food by being provided with enough extension services, by being supported to grow the crops, and also by being supported with a good market and systems that motivates the farmers to actually sell. So the problem in Kenya of food insecurity is not because we don't have enough food. It's an issue of distribution, it's an issue of cost, it's an issue of availability in areas where it's needed. Because even right now we are talking of people in Turkana and Garissa and other places not having food. And from where I come from in Eldoret, we still have maize in the store. Nobody has bought it.
In plenty.
In plenty. In fact, this year I had to mill all my maize to feed my cows because the price was so bad. And it is the same case last year. The Big Four agenda says it's going to support food security and support farmers. For the last 3 or 4 years, the government have been supporting farmers by subsidizing the production. But now this year, Kenyans waited for the government to provide the subsidized fertilizer. It was not available. So the cost of production went up. And the shocking thing in Kenya today, you'll be surprised, the people go hungry. The people who have no food to eat are farmers.
Other areas it's
are farmers. The farmers themselves do not have enough food. Because Kenyan farmers are subsistent farmers, and for a farmer to thrive and be motivated to grow, they have to have a market to sell to. The other problem is that there is a high unemployment level. Kenyans depend on what they produce for a livelihood. So when a farmer produces food, and even if they have the food in the store, and a child comes home because they lack school fees, or somebody in the family gets sick, what will end up happening is that they will sell that maize to be able to offset the medical bills or pay for school fees. So you'll realize that during the harvesting season, the cost of food is very low. And right now as I'm talking, the cost of maize in Eldoret is almost hitting 4,000. Yet 3 months ago, it was 1,600. So the issue here is, how is the government supporting the farmers and the food security system in production, in storage, in distribution, and in making it available to the people who do not have access? Does food security in this country mean supplying people in northeastern and Turkana with imported food? The other challenge we have is that we have left the feeding of our communities that are poor and schools and northeastern to World Food Program. World Food Program is a United Nations organization, and it thrives in giving food aid that is grown by farmers in the West. So if World Food Program today does not give the statistics that food is needed, how do they thrive? The country should have its own system to tell them about food insecurity. We are depending on the data of a foreign organization to tell us Kenya is food insecure. They will do it to benefit their farmers, not our farmers. And World Food Program should actually be buying from Kenyan farmers first to distribute before we start saying that we are opening our borders to import food yet Kenyan farmers have food in their stores.
All right, and you've said something, very important, that actually our problem is not that we don't really have enough food, is the issue of distribution and, lack of support. So, Emmanuel, do you share the same sentiments as to whether it's justifiable for us to go the GMO way because we don't have enough food?
First of all, access to food, and it's not just food, access to adequate food of sufficient quantities. And when you're talking about adequacy, you're talking about safety, we're talking about quality of the food, and we're talking about acceptability of that food. This is a right, this is a human right, and it's embodied in the international economic and social rights that Kenya is a signatory, signed in 1972. By 1972, we are not even talking about GMO technology. So for the government, and when I'm saying government, I'm speaking about the government officials in KALRO and Ministry of Agriculture, who are coming out now to say that GMOs are the solution to food insecurity. For them to come out and say, it's very unfortunate, because at the end of the day, as I've said earlier, this is a technology, and the technology is developed by the proprietor of that technology to benefit them. It's not there to solve societal issues. So when you're talking about food insecurity, I look at food insecurity as something that the government should address as a responsibility, as a priority. And it cannot be addressed through labeling a technology as the solution, or trying to create false hopes in one technology to be the solution. I agree with her. The problem of hunger in Kenya is not a production problem. It's not a problem of production. It's not a problem of lack of technologies. We have very good hybrids for maize, etc. What you're seeing, and as she has rightly put it, because we have even done a lot of work on this. The most hungry people in Kenya are actually farmers. So if the farmers themselves are hungry, you should ask yourself, what is making these farmers hungry? There is a problem with our model of agriculture, where we are really prioritizing commercial farming, producing monocrops mainly for sale, and it's very unstable. The cost of production is going high every day. The same proponents who are coming up, the same companies that are developing these GM varieties are the same companies that develop fertilizers and pesticides and these chemicals that are used in production, which are costly, therefore increasing the cost of production of food and making it even very difficult for even the people who produce the food to access it. So if you're looking at this industrial model, the same proponents are coming up again with another technology that says it will now address the problem of food insecurity. What we are saying is we should have a holistic approach of looking at this problem. There is no one way of solving food insecurity problem, and for us to solve the problem, we have to define it properly. The food insecurity problem in Kenya is not a problem of production. It's a problem of access, it's a problem of buying power, it's a problem of distribution. As she's rightly putting it, there are farmers who are feeding their grains to cows, for instance, and there are people who are starving, they just need those grains. So how then do you ensure that there's a system that ensures that everyone has the best possible shot at getting their food, the food that they need? So it's not a problem of production, and therefore coming up with technologies that purport to increase production, or not even coming up, because here now people are basically promoting a technology that is already existing, is not really going to solve the problem of hunger. Yes.
So, and the proponents are really coming out strongly to say that do not be too adamant, do not be so skeptical about this particular technology. So let's assume that actually the government lifts this ban and GMO now becomes legal. For them, they're saying that all we really want is just regulation. Bet, do you feel that when, say, like the ban is lifted, will regulation be enough reasons to actually for us to actually say that this is a good technology to use, this is the way to go, just because now they will be regulated?
I don't think that is going to solve the problem of food security. You must realize that things like maize, GM cotton, and all the other crops they're advocating to grow is grown because of seed. Seed produces pollen. When pollen is released into space, it will go with air, it will go with water. We have different varieties of maize in this country, where farmers grow them for different reasons. We are a country who love culture. I know there are weekends in Nairobi when we just meet and dance because we want to dance the Luhya dance, and drink the Luhya busa, and eat the Luhya ugali, cooked from the indigenous seed of maize from Luhya land. That is our culture. That is our livelihood. You will come I'm a Kalenjin. We will celebrate, we will drink the mursik, we will eat the ugali the way we cook it with millet. And we will celebrate it the way we do. We've introduced genetically modified maize today. The maize strains that we know grown world over are because they have fitted in what we call Bacilla thuringiensis, which makes the maize resistant to insects. But also the same maize is made herbicide tolerant, which means the farmers will find it easy to grow the maize, but instead of using labor to just weed it as they do, they'll be encouraged to use the chemical, which is Roundup, because the maize will be Roundup ready, and therefore you'll only have the maize standing in the ground. Farmers intercrop crops. That means if you do genetically modified maize, you might not intercrop it with beans because you have to spray it. What happens? Right now, if you go into the villages, people have several crops in the same land. You'll have maize, you'll have the indigenous vegetables like terere, the mito, within the maize, even potatoes. But now, if you have tolerant maize to herbicides and you have to spray the crops, it means all the vegetables that are growing naturally will be wiped out. It's only the maize that is going to stand. What does that mean? The farmer will have the maize but will not have the vegetables to eat with it. The other thing also is because this plant standing on its own becomes an insecticide. It means the insects will feed on the foliage from the maize. No proven test has been done actually in this country to prove how harmful the insecticide that is maize standing is harmful to other beneficial insects. What will happen if our bees are affected, our ladybirds are affected? Yet the same insects that will feed on these maize will be fed on the birds. And the birds might die. So the question is, how is that? The other thing, studies show that when you grow genetically engineered maize, you have to do it on 3/3 of the farm. Then you have to grow the natural maize on 1/3 of the farm, so that the insects can be able to eat the natural plant and leave the chemical one, so that the insects don't develop resistance. We have studies done in this country under ACP, where if you plant Napier grass alongside maize or desmodium, it is called a pull and push method, where now the stalk borer or the insects that are supposed to prey on the maize will go and eat the Napier grass, and therefore the maize will grow without being affected. You will use the grass to feed the cows and you will eat the maize.
All right. So Madam Beth has just mentioned something to do with enough tests. Like ideally just showing that we need enough tests to be done. So from your point of view, do you feel that we actually need enough research to be able to ascertain the toxicology of this kind of product or the safety of this kind of foods?
Yeah, the safety of GMOs is an international contested issue. The people who are promoting GMOs are saying they are safe. The people who are opposed to GMOs are saying they are not safe. What is important as consumers is to ensure that there are proper mechanisms to regulate GM foods in Kenya. I'll give you an example. In 2014, the National Biosafety Authority here in Kenya banned a product called Aromat. If you remember Aromat, the one that used to say Githeri without Aromat is stupid. Now later on we realized actually Githeri with Aromat was more stupid because Aromat contained GM content and it had not been regulated, it had not been labeled. So it was actually stupid to use Aromat in the first place.
Not the other way around.
Not the other way around. And when the NBA banned Aromat, there was a court case, right? There was a court case, and Unilever, the company that was importing the Aromat from South Africa, actually raised the concerns whether the NBA has mandate to regulate whatever food comes in or not, or only to regulate the commercialization or the use of the GM seeds, for example. At that point in time, that is when Kenyans started having a discussion, at least after the 2011 fiasco with WFP and the imports that they were bringing in when we had the hunger problems with GM content. And that time is when we had this discussion again before now, and people are asking, is it safe to take GM products? And the question of safety, as I've said, it has been debated. But basically the question, what we should be asking is, we have a regulatory authority, and there are people who agree that GMs are safe. There are consumers who think that GMs are safe. That is up to them. There are people who think that GMs are not safe. But let us have proper regulations and let us enforce regulations so that in case there are GM products in the market, they are regulated properly to ensure they don't interfere with agroecological farming, they don't interfere with conventional farming, they don't like cross-pollinate and stuff like that. The NBA is talking now about coexistence policy, where you have agroecological or organic farming, you have conventional farming, and then you have farming of genetically modified crops. That policy has to be in place, and it has to involve the farmers, it has to involve the people who matter, the people who produce these foods, to ensure that, as she says, we can still have GM technology in use, because at the end of the day, it's who says what. The other person is saying this is good, but there has to be proper mechanisms to ensure that it does not affect our ability to produce in future. It does not affect the sovereignty of our food. It does not affect our health. It does not affect our environment. That is where the concern should be for us as consumers. And the regulations are in place. Just to finalize on this, from 2009, we had the National Biosafety Act that now formed the National Biosafety Authority. Around that time and around 2015, they developed different regulations. There's regulation for contained use, there's regulation for environmental release, and there's regulation for... Unfortunately, all these regulations do not have mechanisms for redress. As I told you, GM technology is only 40 years old. And anything can happen within the context of rolling out a technology. And we are not saying that it is bad. We are saying, if there are potential hazards, as even stipulated in the Act, as identified in the Act, then there should be mechanisms for redress in case this technology fails our farmers, destroys our environment, or affects our health. There should be mechanisms for redress. There should be civil liability on the companies that are coming up with this technology. And that is where I'm directing Kenyans. Look at these regulations that are there to safeguard you in the event of introduction of GMs. Are they sufficient enough?
Yes. So I'd obviously like us to have this, to just extensively have this discussion, because it's a lot that Kenyans need to be learning up concerning GMOs. But I'm afraid we are short of time, and just as we wrap it up, I'd like us to just tell us in about like 1 minute. The government is set to either lift the ban or the ban to continue. We'll be getting to know the fate of GMOs in July, when we'll be getting to see if the government will lift the ban or it will continue. So from your point of view, with all these reasons put into place, issues of food insecurity, issues that we need to embrace it, let's assume the government probably lifts the ban. With all this put into place, will it be justifiable? In just about 1 minute as we wrap it up.
For me, it's not justifiable because other countries in Africa embrace the crops. Burkina Faso, Egypt, Sudan, and all these countries. And yet they went back and banned the production of those crops because there were questionable issues about it. In places like India and Burkina Faso, the crops did very well for the first 2 years. Then after that, they had to do a lot of spraying and controlling of the pests. But what resulted was, because the pests had developed resistance to BT, they were more resistant now to pesticides. So farmers have to spray more and more. And therefore, what it actually did is that it created super pests. Do you want to go to that direction? Farmers could not save their seed or share their seed. So if we go GM, then our seed will be controlled by the owners of the genetically engineered seed, which is patented. And that person will control our food and food security. That is just one multinational. Should we sacrifice that as a country?
Definitely not. What about you, Emmanuel? Do you think it will be justifiable, assuming the government actually lifts this ban, putting all these factors into consideration? Will it be justifiable?
I would say there are many effects about.
Very quickly, tell us.
There are many concerns about the food production system you're using. As I've told you already, we are using a very industrial model of agriculture. We are not thinking about the environment. A lot of chemical fertilizer use, a lot of pesticide use that are already harming our environment. So it's for Kenyans to ask this question. Basically, as we are saying, we have been promised by top government officials who are concerned with this matter that they're going to lift the ban. what we are asking is, are there regulatory mechanisms to ensure that if GM is commercialized, the potential effects, which are also identified, are also already admitted in the Act, the potential effects to environment, to our health, to our seed, to our biodiversity are taken care of. That is the question that we should be asking. We should be asking for public participation. We should be asking for the social, environmental, and social impact assessment reports for the GMO varieties that are going to be introduced. That is the discussion that we should be having as Kenyans. Because when someone does an environmental and social impact assessment, and we are the society where that impact, expected impact is supposed to affect, then we should really be asking about that report. And let's see that kind of transparency in this issue. That is what we are asking for.
All right. Yeah. Again, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, we would have loved to continue having this discussion, because, like I said, there's a lot that needs to be discussed concerning this GMO, and I know we've not extensively exhausted it, but just for the sake of our viewers, but basically what has really just come across is that there's still concerns concerning our environment, concerns still on health as well.